Welcome to Earth Eats. I'm Kate Young. Today we're going to make strawberry jam. A homegrown strawberry really has a different kind of flavor than the store-bought ones. They are a lot smaller and they're tart, but they're delicious. So much flavor. And strawberries are a perennial crop, so once you get them established, you can be harvesting from them for many years. They keep kind of expanding and your production should go up. You want about 4 cups of strawberries once they're mashed. So I usually try to get about double that just to make sure I have enough. So let's head inside and make some strawberry jam. They're a lot smaller than what you might be used to seeing in the grocery store. But if you've ever had this type of home garden strawberry, you know that the flavor is really different from a lot of the commercial strawberries that you get, which do seem to be bred for size and for color as opposed to flavor. Now, I always make as large of a batch as I can. Sometimes we will save up the berries from our garden until we have enough to make a big batch of jam, and then we will can it. And it is important what kind of pan you use when you're making fruit jam. Is you want to use what they call a non-reactive pan, which basically means it's not aluminum, it's not cast iron, carbon steel. You want it to be something that stainless steel is perfect. And that's just because of all the acidity. Traditionally, jam is made with Pectin. There's something called Sure Gel that you can buy at most grocery stores, even hardware stores. The problem with typical Pectin is that you have to add a lot of sugar to make it gel, to make it work. The first time I made jam that way, I was kind of blown away because there were like 4 cups of fruit and 7 cups of sugar. And I was just like, wait a minute. I wanted to make my own jam because I didn't want it to have that much sugar in it. So I discovered something called Pomona's Universal Pectin. Basically, it comes with 2 packets. One packet has your pectin in it. And then this type of pectin doesn't need sugar to activate. But what it does need is calcium. So you mix a little bit of the calcium powder with some water, put it in a jar, shake it up, and then you can just store this in your fridge through the entire jamming season. So it's just available and ready anytime you want to make jam. And it keeps for a long time. This you're going to want to add to your fruit when you're cooking it. The pectin you want to add to your sugar. So for this amount of jam, you can use anywhere from a half a cup of sugar to 2 cups of sugar. I usually go with around a cup and a half. I mean, you could use way more than that, but then I think you're not going to be tasting the fruit as much. It's just going to taste like sweet random fruit. You're not going to taste the strawberry. And then the amount of pectin is 2 teaspoons. And you want to mix it in with your sugar just because it will mix into your fruit a little bit better. The problem with pectin is it can kind of get lumpy and you have to be a little bit careful about that. And then I'm also adding 2 teaspoons of this calcium water to the fruit. And this has no flavor whatsoever, nor does the pectin. And pectin is a natural product. It is not a chemical. It's made from fruit. It's made from, I think, apples or pears. It's just a naturally occurring thickening. All right, so this is ready to go on the stove and we can get started. It is getting ready to boil. It's doing a little simmer right now. One of the nice things about making jam this way is that you don't really have to wait hours and hours stirring and waiting for it to thicken, which is a method of making jam, and I think you can do that without even using pectin. The problem is it takes forever, and there are lots of things that can go wrong. Once it comes to a boil, I'm going to add my sugar and pectin mixture, and I'm going to stir quickly and vigorously. This is pretty much the hardest step of the process. Add it all at once and just stir really quickly so it gets very well mixed in. Now it's just a matter of waiting for it to come back to a boil, and as soon as it has come to a boil, it is ready. It's gonna look liquidy. It's gonna look like it's not jam, but it will set up when it cools, and that's when it gets that's when it thickens up. And so you don't need to worry about what it looks like now. You just have to kind of trust that it's gonna do it. So it looks like it has come to a rolling boil, and now I can remove it from the heat. So while you're making your jam, you want to put a big pot of water on the stove and put like a round cooling rack, like for cookies or cake. You want to put that in the bottom of your pan and then set your jars in there, fill it about halfway with water, and bring it to a boil. Once it is boiled, your jars are sterilized and you can use them for canning. The canning equipment that is most necessary is one of these, which is a jar lifter, and one of these, which is a funnel that's made for canning jars. So you just want to pour the water out and transfer them to a towel. We take a little bit of the hot water and just pour it over these lids. These are special canning lids, and I always just try to get this as close to the jars as possible and fill them up. Then you want to fill it to within 1/4 inch of the top. You have to leave a little bit of headspace for it to expand a little bit. The way that the seal is created is in the cooling process. As the jam is cooling, it kind of sucks in that spring on the lid and makes a seal. So the last step is you want to take a damp cloth made of like t-shirt material. You don't want anything that has a lot of lint, and you just want to wipe around the edge of each jar to make sure there's nothing interfering with that seal. You place the lid on. And the reason you pour the hot water over it is to kind of warm up this rubber seal, just to kind of help seal it. And when you're tightening these down, first of all, it's very hot, the glass is, but you just want them finger tight. You're not like, that's not what's sealing them. This is what's sealing them. And they're ready to go into what is called the hot water bath. I was careful to not let too much heat out, and so it's still boiling. Once the water is boiling, then you set your timer. And for these, it's just going to be 10 minutes. One thing I want to say about canning is that the only things that you can can in this type of system, the hot water bath system, are fruits and pickles, because you need the acidity for the food safety. All of the kind of toxic organisms that could occur in home canned food cannot survive in a high acid environment. So all of your fruits are going to be high acid, including tomatoes, but nowadays some tomatoes are lower acid than they used to be. So we always add lemon juice when we're doing tomatoes now, just to make sure that they're safe. But anything like vegetables, if you were going to can corn or green beans that aren't pickled, you have to use a pressure canning method, which is a bit more complicated. So just be sure to only use this process when you are doing high acid foods like fruits or pickles. Pickles have so much vinegar in them that you don't even need to can them to preserve them. For making jam, it couldn't be simpler. This, you just saw how I did it. That's all that's required. In 10 minutes, I will take these out and set them on a cooling rack. They will seal and they will be ready. They'll be shelf stable and ready to enjoy whenever you want. These have been in here for 10 minutes with a rapid boiling. Hold them steady. The temptation is to tip them over to get that water off the top, but don't do it because you don't want to mess up the seal. So just try to keep them steady and just put a towel underneath so you don't drip hot water all over your floor. And that water on the top will just evaporate. There's really not much that is more satisfying to me than having food put up, especially food that I've raised myself in a garden. So this is the jam. You'll want to let it cool fully before you do anything with it. This center of the lid will suck down in there and seal. You'll hear it in a few minutes, it'll click. And that's how you know that they're sealed. And once they're all sealed, you can safely take off those rings and store them that way. It's better to store them that way because you don't want to trap any like moisture or anything in that ring. They've separated a little bit, that's okay, it's not a problem. If you don't like how it looks throughout the cooling process, you can just come over here, turn them upside down for 10 minutes or something. Just kind of keep flipping them as they're cooling and it'll get redistributed in there. Thanks for watching our recipe today. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. And you can find our podcast, it's a weekly podcast, at eartheats.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you. We'll see you next time.